Our cities as they are created today and have been for the last 4,000 to 5,000 years are sexist by design and default because they are primarily made and managed by men. Men, as understood within a gender binary construct in our society, are less than half of the species. And so the underrepresentation of women in these leadership positions, even in the influence from the bottom up, creates an inherently sexist environment. This is gender inequity. You can call it sexism. You can also refer to the system itself as patriarchal or misogynist. But essentially, what we're talking about is an underrepresentation of the majority of the population. One of the best ways to understand these design elements that create a sexist environment is in thinking about transportation in particular. It's also one of the easiest things to see in a city, as streets take up most of our public spaces in most cities worldwide. But essentially what you're looking at is the prioritization of a certain kind of travel behavior of those people that are in charge. Statistics show that men are more likely to drive, just in general, and they're more likely to take less trips in their travel behavior. That means that men go from point A to point B and prioritize this efficiency. Because we have an implicit and explicit bias in our experiences every day in our daily lives and everything that we do, let alone the creation and management of our cities, this means that things like streets and cars are prioritized because the people in charge are they themselves who are using those things that they're planning. One of the best ways to understand the difference between the patriarchal city and maybe a matriarchal or a feminist or gender equitable city is to think of the patriarchal system in a linear binary system. So think of it from a concept of point A to point B, and then think of the matriarchal idea or alternative in a more holistic capacity. So a city itself with a skyscraper with an economic focus might be one that is trying to increase over time exponentially. There is no understanding of any fluctuation, for instance, because the goal is to constantly improve. This is where innovation for innovation's sake comes into play, whereby something new has to be something that hasn't been seen before, or it has to be high-tech or fancy or shiny to attract attention. That is a kind of commodification of the urban environment. It commercializes systems that are otherwise meant to be used on a daily basis as a kind of hierarchy of needs for the health and happiness of any human living in that city. A matriarchal alternative or feminist city concept would instead put care and compassion at the core of that conversation, and would instead look at a city almost like a home in a more holistic ecosystem model, as opposed to thinking of it as linearly moving in one direction only. It's more complex, but a city is complex, and so to understand those ebbs and flows and the bottom-up and top-down actions taking place every day, really in that holistic understanding of human beings in general and what we need, that is what the reality of a city needs from that gender equitable lens. It just so happens that it's a new idea because the people that have been in charge have not thought of it that way up until now.